Hello. I was recently given a bunch of programming floppy disks from Gene Patrick's animatronic shows by another collector, David Pleasant, who has a lot of animatronics from the Showtech Corporation. The Showtech Corporation was Gene Patrick's company that he ran in Texas to produce animatronic shows and amusement rides. He produced the soundtrack to the original Six Flags Over Texas Spelunker Cave ride, designed the original Tales of the Okefenokee Dark ride for Six Flags Over Georgia, and was also one of the main designers for Astroworld, MGM Grand Adventures, Carowinds, the Great America Parks, Hershey's Chocolate World, and the creator of Chucky Live at Pizza Time Theater, along with being responsible for the construction of the Arlington, Texas Chuck E. Cheese stage renovation in 1987, which was the first time the animatronics of Chucky, Jasper, and Helen got legs in the restaurants. He did business under many company names, and worked as an executive in various big companies over the years. So not all of the projects that I mention are necessarily Showtech projects, but a lot of them are. Anyway, let's get to the programming floppies, and what shows they were made for. The Emporium Food and Fun was a restaurant with a retrofitted Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater animatronics show, located in Commack, New York. I don't know much about this show, but Gene must have replaced the original show system with an RA Gray controller. These floppies are meant for an RA Gray programming system, so they have the signals, but not the soundtracks. I have seen a video of the show where they sing re-recorded versions of Chucky's Hit Parade and the Country USA shows, and reapplied the scripts to this new cast of characters. Gene Patrick produced both of those soundtracks for Pizza Time Theater, so it's not surprising to me that he had the instrumentals in his archive to re-record them for the Emporium. In that video that I watched, it sounded to me like multiple of the characters were voiced by Scott Wilson. The female character also took it upon herself, so to speak, and stepped up to the plate to take over for both Helen and the Warblettes' voice lines in these reused scripts, as the Warblettes did not make it into this retrofit. I have a lot of floppies from the SFAW Cow Palace show. SFAW stands for Six Flags Astroworld. The show these are for is none other than the All-Star Texas Country Music Review, better known by its original name, the Great Texas Longhorn Review. Gene Patrick redid the soundtrack to the Longhorn show completely and changed the show's name. The voice cast was completely different from the original cast that the original Longhorn show producer, Gary Goddard, assembled. In Gene's version of the show, Scott Wilson is the voice of Slick Silver, the pig host.
Thanks, folks, and a big country howdy to all of you out there.
Slick used to have two animatronic figures akin to Henry having multiple animatronics of himself in Disney's Country Bear Jamboree, but the one that played guitar got replaced with a mascot costume of Gabby the dog, who originally had a much more minor role, only as a small animatronic that popped out of the proscenium of the stage. It seems like Gabby's act in mascot form was optional, and there was an alternate version that Gene made without the act. Gene Patrick's version ran far longer than Gary Goddard's original version, despite the original version being far more remembered. The animatronics were built by Advanced Animations, and Gene Patrick switched out the original controller with an RA Gray unit. The original show control unit was made by a company in Connecticut called Kimchuck. I think it's pretty ironic that Gene replaced Gary's version of the Longhorn Review, years after Gary replaced Tales of the Okefenokee with Monster Plantation, even though a lot of Gene's work was already replaced by the Croft brothers before the Monster Plantation rolled in. The Cyber Jazz Trio was a smaller show made by Gene Patrick. It was used at Tivoli Pier in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which was a part of Trop World Resort at Tropicana Casino and Hotel. Scott Wilson mentioned to me that there was another set installed in a Six Flags park, but it was poorly received and quickly removed. All three of the Cyber Jazz Trio's characters were voiced by Scott Wilson, and the shows were even programmed by him. I believe the sticky note might actually be his handwriting. Ocean City-based animated display builder Eric Prince ended up buying the Tivoli Pier set during their closure. Scott Wilson mentioned that the Six Flags set was the original, but I'm honestly not sure if they moved that set to Tivoli Pier or not. I do believe that they built at least two sets either way, because I heard that Gene Patrick offered to sell Eric Prince another set after he had already purchased his first one from Tivoli Pier. O'Shea's has to be one of the ones that I know the least about. All I can really say is that it was a quartet of leprechauns located at the original O'Shea's location on the Las Vegas Strip. Scott Wilson voiced all four and programmed the characters, much like the Cyber Jazz Trio. That's about the end of my knowledge on those. I know absolutely nothing about this one, and I don't want to speculate too much, but this evidently must have been some show with a tree and a bird. This one should be for a Bugs Bunny costume show. And here's the Trop Shuttle Ride, which I believe had something to do with Tivoli Pier and Trop World. I don't really know what to make of the Mark Twain floppy either. I did read that Showtech built an animatronic of him though. And now, back to the stuff that I actually know well, starting with Cavalcade of Stars. The Cavalcade of Stars was an animatronic musical revue at Tivoli Pier starring animal parodies of famous celebrities. It was named after the TV show hosted by Jackie Gleason, who is a character in the show, but the host is actually Joan Rivers. There was also Dolly Parton, Sammy Davis Jr., Jimmy Durante, Elton John, Rodney Dangerfield, The Supremes, and a walking Elvis Presley. There were also 6 showgirl birds on swings called the Showbirds. Jackie Gleason would supposedly flirt with them. Jackie himself was a bird in the show. Eric Prince also bought this show from the Tivoli Pier closing sale, along with his Cyber Jazz Trio, and has resold as well as retrofitted many of the figures over the years. This show seems to be adapted from a costume show originally performed at Marriott's Great America called the Bugs Bunny Las Vegas Revue, with many similarities, including a Sammy Davis Jr. impersonating Duck, except at Great America, it was Daffy Davis Jr., played by Daffy Duck himself.
Daffy Davis Jr.
Hey, Daffy, great to see you.
Yeah, man. Give me some skin.
The characters' outfits in the Cavalcade of Stars show were crafted by Pat Campano, and I believe Scott Wilson voiced Jimmy Durante. Scott also programmed Cavalcade of Stars, but I'm assuming it may have been a group effort, considering there were a lot of animatronic figures. I believe the figures were commissioned by the Showtech Corporation, but actually built out west in California by a company called Branham & Bigelow. It's a bit unclear, but that's what I've been able to gather. Either way, Branham & Bigelow went out of business shortly after Tivoli Pier opened, and Gene Patrick commissioned animatronics from the Connecticut company, VP Productions, from then on, including Bubba and the Happy Holiday Bears, which is my next and final show that I'm spotlighting for this video. The Bubba and the Happy Holiday Bears show was arguably Gene Patrick's best-selling show of them all. Not only did the bears interact with their audience via an attendant with a control panel and microphone, they also performed Christmas songs. Many of the show scripts that they performed were reused and modified versions of shows that Gene Patrick had previously produced and put into use at Pizza Time Theater and Marriott's Great America. VP Productions fabricated all 6 of the figures. I don't know who voiced any of the characters, but I don't think Scott Wilson was involved. He had already parted ways with Gene Patrick to start his own production company called Mars Enterprises, which produced shows for Chuck E. Cheese, much like Gene used to do. Now, let me introduce you to the cast. From left to right, there was the Master of Ceremonies, Bubba, Bo on guitar, Ted E on piano, Buck on bass, and on the far right, 2 seemingly identical female bears that I can't seem to tell apart, Ginger and Honey. Gene also sold a 4-piece version without Ted E and Honey, which I think was way more common than the 6-piece. Gene also used bear characters built by VP for other shows, such as a show at the Texas State Fair called Music Time, sponsored by Exxon. There was also a show with bears playing handbells. I'm not sure when Gene Patrick retired, or if he ever did, but I know he was still working on theme parks into 1993 with the MGM Grand project in Nevada, which he was a big contributor to. He passed away in 2012. Gene Patrick had such an expansive career in theme parks, and even though he did so many animatronic shows, he actually produced far more costume shows as well as shows that utilized real live human performers as talent. He was the first producer to hire many influential people in the entertainment industry while they were still in their youth. Scott Wilson, Desiree Goyette, Donna Miller, Candy Milo, and Dave Wolowick all got their start at Marriott's Great America while Gene Patrick was Vice President of Entertainment, for both the Twin Parks in California and Illinois. Speaking of Dave Wolowick, he has shared many performances from Great America to his YouTube channel, and they've been a great resource for my research of theme parks. I wouldn't know nearly as much about these topics without the information that he's provided. Scott Wilson also taught me a fair amount about the shows that he worked on with Gene. Thanks again to David Pleasant for mailing me the programming floppy disks, which inspired me to make this video. That about does it for this episode of Animatronic Analysis. Thank you all for tuning in. From Kevin of Pask Animatronics.
It's a country of fun for everyone. It's Marriott's Great